Hey folks, Alex here, 9 to 5 to Freedom. In today's video, we're going to discuss, should you go all in on Ulty? Is this the only fund that you need? And is this the ultimate buying opportunity? If you're new to this channel, in this channel I document my journey, building a dividend portfolio that will replace my 9 to 5 income. If you like this kind of content, make sure you stick around, subscribe, and let's get started, folks. If you've seen my other videos, and we'll just, let's switch over to our screen. First, shout out to all my new subscribers. We're almost at 2,500 subs. This is amazing. This wouldn't be possible without you. Okay, so one of the videos that I had was will Ulty recover, right? So this was a big hit. We talked about how Ulty, our golden goose, how it's been sick with the pullback we had from the announcements that the rates aren't coming down, that we had some poor job reports, and on top of that, we had the August 1st deadline for tariff negotiations with the countries across the world. Now, some countries did come and negotiate some tariffs, but there's still some others that have not. So I think there's been an extension for another, I think, 6 more days. I think August 7th is the extension period. So we've seen a pullback, folks. If we look at Ulty stock in this last 5 days, we've seen a pullback of almost 5%. Okay, so that's that's significant, but obviously it's something that's not uncommon. Let's look at just QQQ, for example. QQQ was down almost 2%. This is the Nasdaq, represents 100 really tech companies. And in the past 5 days, we're down about 2.5%. So as you can see, Ulty had a larger pullback than QQQ, but it is much more concentrated fund, right? So it's very hard to compare Ulty to anything because of its underlyings, because of the option calls that they're doing and the puts that they're doing. So it's a very unique fund. But what I wanted to really look into it is this pullback that we've seen. I'm coming to a conclusion, obviously, and I think many of you are as well. I don't think it's anything that we should be panicking about, because we've seen, for example, QQQ. We'll just look back in February 19th. QQQ was at $539 a share. Now, with all the tariffs and everything that came out, this has dropped to $416. And we've seen an amazing recovery. I mean, look at this. We went from February 18th, and we've recovered everything back by June. I know it took a few months. It took about 4 months or so, but the recovery did happen, and this was quite a significant drop. And look, year to date, let's see, QQQ, we're still up 8.5% even with this correction. And look how small this correction is. I mean, realistically, we had a similar correction back on May. Now, this is the weekend. Next week, we're going to see what's going to happen. We might see more of a correction as well. It's difficult to say, but there might be some good news that might come out. So nobody has a crystal ball. Well, maybe somebody does, and they're probably making a lot more money than we are. But this is my analysis, and same can be said about Ulty, right? So Ulty, if we look at the year-to-date chart, now Ulty is a little bit different because they ran this fund differently. They've changed the way they started to run the fund back in March. They started to pay the dividend weekly. We see the lowest low here in April, and you can see this flattening period out. Now let's talk about the flattening. So what I did, and I wanted to show this with you guys. So I use this TradingView. It's a free platform. They have like a paid version in there. And let me just get my face out of the way so you guys can see the whole screen. But basically, you can plug in any 2 stocks in here, and you can run comparisons. You can see for example, I plugged in QQQ and I plugged in Ulty. Okay, QQQ is the green one. I know it might be a little bit hard to see on mobile. Ulty is the red line. Now, this is looking at all time. So we're going to compare from the beginning of when Ulty came out, which was back in February of 2024. You can see here the disparity in the performance. It's probably really hard to see. QQQ, I'm showing we're up 24.3%, and Ulty, we're down almost 70%. Now, let's click a little button here in the corner, and this button will then, here, I figured out how to zoom in. Okay, so I hope you can see the chart now better. So if I click this button, which is adjust, and this adjusts data for dividends. So right now, the two charts, they're comparing, and let's do here. Okay, so the two charts, they're comparing without any dividends included. Now we know that Ulty pays dividends, and when Ulty came out with its fund, it paid out multiple dollars per month per share. So it was paying out really nicely. Now, if we factor in the dividends, if I just click this button, now the two charts look very different. And look at the correlation between the two charts. It's almost like they're mimicking each other. We have the same starting point, and we see QQQ's taking off, it's going up, but look at this gap between the two lines. The downs and the ups, they look very, very similar. And same with the recent pullback we had this week. Now, as I mentioned, back in March, they redid how they ran the fund. Let's now click on a 6 month. So if we click down here, this is going to show us a 6 month chart. And this is when it gets a little bit interesting. So at a 6 month chart, this brings us back to February. Let's see here, Monday the 3rd. And this is still before they redid their fund. So if we slide this over and we get to, let's get to March 1st. Roughly around here. We'll just leave it at this, okay? So, look, if we get back to March, with the dividends included, Ulty has outperformed the Nasdaq by 7%. If we click this, then we see the dividends taken out, and you can see Ulty's been down 20%, and Nasdaq is up 10%. Now, a lot of you will point out, no, you can't compare these two funds because they're not the same. Obviously, they're not the same. But Nasdaq is probably the closest thing I can compare to because they're both very tech heavy. And we need some kind of index to compare, these funds to, because if an index outperforms our dividend producing ETF, then what's the point of our dividend producing ETF? With the dividends again introduced back in, Ulty is outperforming. Now, let's make this even more interesting. Let's look at just a 3 month chart. And you can see here, both Ulty and QQQ, and let's take out the dividends for a second. We take out the dividends. 3 month chart. Nasdaq is up 14%. Ulty is up 2%. Now, factor in the dividends. Ulty is up 25%, and Nasdaq is only up 14.5%. And this is pretty cool. Now, you see the downtrend. I have a break signal here, and it shows me the trends, right? So we've seen that highest point, and it's showing me the next highest point, and it's showing the Ulty's on a downtrend. Now, this is pretty cool, folks. I wanted to really diagnose this and get an idea. And I think this puts my mind really at ease on Ulty. Yes, it's obviously without the dividends factored in, you would have done better with the Nasdaq or probably even SPY at this point. But we're getting that weekly dividend, and I think that really what makes Ulty stand out quite nicely in everything that we've seen here. So um, we're floating at that $6 price right now, and the question is this a buying opportunity? Is this going to continue to trend downwards? Are we going to get down to the 550? And should we hold on? Folks, I don't give out financial advice. Some of you might, I've seen people post yesterday when everything was dropping. You're like, should we be buying? Should we be? I'm not going to tell you what to do. Only thing I'm going to show you is what I'm doing, and I tell everybody don't copy what I'm doing. So I don't want to be liable for you losing money. But this is my analysis. I think it's too early to panic. I think yes, we might see a further pullback, but as long as our accounts are strong, as long as and for those who don't have margin, really there's nothing for you to worry about at this point. I mean, you see the pullback, but you're going to continue to see your dividend. And last week, this week we got 10 cents. Last week we got 10 cents per share. So it's been really amazing what we've seen with that. Now, we haven't seen a nice recovery, and that's the video that I made, and I think folks were kind of I don't think they understood me. My issue wasn't that people were saying, well, why do you expect it to recover the same day you got the dividend? When you go on X dividend, obviously the price of the share drops by the dividend amount. What I was pointing out really was that we haven't seen a recovery for the last 3 or so dividends. And that was what I was pointing out. Now, if you look at, let's just look at the 1 month chart, for example. You see the period from the beginning here, July, and then we'll get through, let's say, Monday the 21st. You see how Nasdaq and Ulty they're kind of going hand in hand. And then something happens on this period here. And this is what I was pointing out. This is what I wasn't happy about. You see the continued movement of Nasdaq in that same pattern direction. And then you start seeing the erosion of Ulty downwards. And this is what I was pointing out. Now, if we adjust in for obviously for dividends, it's a better story for Ulty. But I was looking at the NAV itself. I did not like that the NAV was continued to come down. So that's what I was pointing out. Now, I think, in my opinion, we need to give Ulty a little bit more time. We need to give the market a little bit more time. We need to see a little bit of a pullback, a little bit of a recovery, and we'll see what that next price will be that hopefully will oscillate on. Now, if I kind of look at the center here, right? So if we look at this flat period we've had since May for Ulty, all the way through this week, we really floated around this price point here, and that's, I think that gets us in that $6.20 range. Let me see if I can see the dollar amounts. Okay, so yeah, I'm not sure why it's doing that. Okay, we have to take out Nasdaq. Let's just take out Nasdaq. All right, never mind. We'll get to that later. Might be easier to see on the Google one. But really, that middle price point was somewhere between, I would say, 620 to 625 a share. So I think if we see some kind of pullback, if we can get up to like 615, maybe 610 this week, that would be amazing. I think that would give a lot of relief to a lot of folks who are holding a lot of Ulty. Now let's talk about my account real quick. I did a video last week, and as you can see, I'm down on Ulty 4.5%. So it's quite a bit. It hurts when you have a lot of shares, obviously, but 4.5%, folks. that's not, that's not unusual. You can see pullbacks that are greater than that. Now, if we look at Nasdaq, I've got into this one probably a little bit earlier. We were down 2% yesterday, and Ulty I was down 2.12%. So really, this is what I like to see. I wanted to see the downs to be very close to the index, and I think that really calms me down because I'm not as worried. Now, one thing that I did back in, let's see when I published this video. So on July 23rd, folks, I sold all of my MISTY position. And some of you folks, and again, this was not a crystal ball or anything that I knew. I was kind of looking at the trends. And some folks said, well, you're stupid for doing that, whatever, you should hold MISTY, whatever. But, Friday, we've seen a huge correction, 8.36% just in one day. Now, again, I'm not trying to take any credit. I was just repositioning my portfolio. I wanted to diversify, and in a way that really helped me. At some point, I had $60,000 in MISTY, and if I would have kept my position, if I wouldn't have diversified it, if you look at $60,000 and just that one pullback of 8.36%, that would have cost me $5,000 just on MISTY's pullback. Now again, you can hold on to your shares, and most likely these will probably recover and go back up. But I didn't like the overall trend on MISTY. Okay, so over the past month, it's down almost 20%, and I didn't like seeing that. So that's one of the reasons that I went very heavy on Ulty, folks. And I think in a way it helped me out because it is a lot more diversified. Okay, and the weekly payouts really, I think, help stabilize and help me lower my margin. And so I was really relieved that to see again that it's really tracking very closely to the Nasdaq. We're still getting strong payouts, and I'm not seeing as much of a huge volatility as we're seeing in MISTY. Let's just take a look at MSTR for a second. Yeah, so MSTR was down 8.77%. As you can see, it after hours it climbed back up about 0.65%. So again, when I see a chart like this, there's a possibility of a downtrend. I mean, look what we had back in just not too long ago, November 22nd. We went from $421 a share on MSTR down to $255. That could wipe you out, and that happened fairly quickly. I mean, you were on this downward spiral. So what if the same thing's going to happen here? I don't know. 434, and what if you go down to 255? And look how, obviously we had very fast recoveries here, but we also had very fast downward movement as well. So the volatility, obviously, I think for something like MSTR or even MISTY, you want to make sure that, and again, not financial advice, but you want to make sure that you're not margining, to the max on this kind of stuff, because that could really hurt you. If you can move downwards 20 to 30% within a week and you have it on margin, that could really mess things up for you. So again, don't want to make this a long video. In summary, folks, I think I'm going to continue to monitor what the market's doing, track our Ulty. I'm going to continue to compare it to, I think, the Nasdaq. If somebody has a better comparison that you think we should be using, please leave a comment below. And yeah, so I hope you like this analysis and my strategy moving forward. I think the diversification, again, within Ulty, I think that's a very strong point for it, and the weekly payouts as well. So I don't think we should panic at this point. Obviously, nobody likes to see the pullbacks, but it is part of the game in the market. So thanks for watching, folks. Have a great weekend. We'll see you on the next video.